Hey, what's up guys? Today I'll show you a superhero film, Black Widow. Spoiler ahead, watch out and take care. Back in 1995, Natasha lived happily together with her foster parents' dad and mom, and foster younger sister. One night, Dad came home glumly and urged the family to leave the city as soon as possible. Mom quickly led the two daughters to pack up and rushed out for departure. When all was ready, the family took Dad's car to a hidden gateway plane. As soon as they reached, they were surrounded by many police vehicles. Dad opened fire at the police and instructed the rest to take off the plane. Despite many hindrances, they barely managed to escape. Unfortunately, Mom was injured, but the wound was not fatal. Following a bumpy landing in a Cuba military base, Dad submitted a set of confidential documents to his boss and resigned at the same time. In fact, Dad and Mom were Russian undercover spies sent to the United States for duty. Adopting Natasha and Yelena is part of their plan to masquerade themselves as harmless USA citizens. Wrenched from Dad and Mom, Natasha and Yelena were enrolled by the Red Room, the Russian Agent Training Institute, where many other homeless girls are imprisoned. By years of cruel training and brainwashing, Natasha has become a trained killer. The almost invincible Natasha is an all-rounded agent. So fast in both her thoughts and movements that she never fails any given mission. However, Natasha has left the Red Room and joined the Avengers instead. Since then, Natasha had to run away and hide from the killers. On the other hand, Yelena, Natasha's younger sister, is another perfect agent. She is tasked to take back a mysterious parcel from the target. At first, she is prepared to snipe directly from a distance to kill the targeted person. But the subject is alert enough to notice Yelena's presence and runs away. Yelena immediately goes for a melee combo with the opponent and stabs her hard in the chest. As the opponent collapses, succumbing to her wounds, Yelena prepares to give her another deadly stab. To her surprise, the lady takes out a little red bottle and sprays on Yelena some special potent red dust, which is worse than hormone spray. Once Yelena gets into contact with the synthetic gas, she comes to her senses and realizes that the target is a fellow agent from the Red Room. The dying agent entrusts the red dust to Yelena and asks her to rescue more Black Widows trapped by the Red Room. So Yelena rebels against the Red Room and finally escapes the thumb of the evil mastermind. Needless to say, she is being pursued by the Taskmaster, a robot soldier. On the other hand, Natasha stays in a safe house in Norway where a friend takes care of her. The friend brings her some groceries and some letters from the Budapest safe house. Thinking the letters are irrelevant, Natasha leaves the safe house to throw them away. When she is crossing over a bridge, she is attacked by a missile bomb from the Taskmaster. The blast is no joke, and her car is totaled. Natasha survives the deadly blow and falls into a fierce fight with the Taskmaster. As the two wrestle intensely with each another, Natasha discovers that Taskmaster is here for a parcel she disposes of, rather than herself. The particular parcel is among the documents from the Budapest safe house. Full of curiosity, Natasha grabs the parcel ahead of the Taskmaster and dives into the river for escape. Later, the parcel is found containing a number of red reagents and a photo of Natasha and Yelena. Knowing this parcel is from Yelena, Natasha travels to the Budapest safe house to meet her younger sister. However, their reunion involves a bone-cracking episode of hand-to-hand combat that ends in a truce. After the two have rolled themselves like burritos, Natasha suspects that Yelena works for the Red Room. But her worries soon vanish as Yelena tells her side of the story. It's revealed the red reagents are used to keep the brain immune to external manipulation. In fact, to maintain the Widow's absolute obedience, the Red Room uses certain mind-control drugs on them, and the red dust is the right antidote to the mind control spell. Yelena wants to take down the Red Room in collaboration with Avengers via Natasha. However, the Avengers have fallen apart since its third war. Natasha is shocked to learn that Mastermind is still alive, whom she thought she had killed. Yelena confirms that Mastermind and his daughter have survived the explosion. Merely seconds later, the Black Widows break into the Budapest safe house. Natasha and Yelena hurry to escape, only to find them surrounded by widows at all sides. They flee to the rooftop, planning to jump over to another building with a water pipe as a stepping stone. In the meantime, a widow climbs up the pipe and loses her foothold. Natasha approaches the seriously injured widow to check her health status, but she is already killed remotely by the Red Room. Now Natasha is fully convinced that Red Room is still active. Later, the two sisters run to the street from the back exit and flee the scene with a motorbike. The agents immediately spot them and chase after them by car. As Natasha's motorbike turns over, they grab a car to continue the fast and furious journey, rather than a hormone game. The Taskmaster then fires a missile to blow up their car. The car ends up in a subway station. Natasha and Yelena crawl out from the car and dash into the crowds. Only when they enter the ventilation duct, they finally get rid of the Taskmaster. While staying safe, Yelena explains to Natasha that the Taskmaster is Mastermind's latest invention. Taskmaster is a fast learner who can imitate the action and tactics of anyone. By now, Natasha is determined to destroy the Red Room and save all other widows. As Red Room keeps moving around, even Yelena is not sure of its latest location. Natasha's friend supplies them with a plane and flies them to meet their dad, who is an ex-soldier with supernatural power and an ex-member of the Red Room. He is the Red Guardian who owns a shield similar to that of the Captain of America, just that their rank is completely different. A few years ago, the once mighty Guardian was locked up in prison at a snow mountain. Speculating that Dad must know the Red Room's location, Natasha suggests meeting him. In order to free Dad from his shackles, the sisters send him a childhood toy with earpieces hidden in it. As soon as Dad sees the toy, he knows that the daughters are here to rescue him. He quickly puts on the earpiece to communicate with Natasha. Following her instruction, Dad overcomes the jailers with his superpower and breaks away. At the same time, Natasha and Yelena's plane is approaching the prison. Following an alarm throughout the prison, many security guards assemble and start shooting at Dad and the helicopter. Natasha descends from the helicopter to tackle the guards and wipes out a few like a breeze, blowing away the smelly shit. Yelena fires a shot at the tower, which triggers a snowslide. The snowdrift rushes down from the mountain like raging waves, enveloping the whole prison. At once, all the guards dash back to the prison for safety. Yelena quickly lets down the rappel of the aircraft to pick up Natasha and Dad before the snow swallows them up. To their surprise, Dad doesn't know where the Red Room locates. But Natasha learns that their foster mom is still working for the Red Room as a research scientist in the suburb of Pittsburgh. In the faux family that only lasts for 3 years, Yelena prefers Mom over Dad. So the trio set off to Pittsburgh. Natasha does not have many feelings for the foster family, as her sole focus now is to locate the Red Room. Soon after, they find Mom, who is overwhelmed that Natasha and Yelena intend to mutilate the Mastermind's kingdom. Mastermind owns a chemical reagent that does the trick of mind control. He has widely applied it all over the world, showing that Mastermind's power is at its pinnacle now. With countless Black Widows at his disposal, Natasha and Yelena absolutely stand no chance to win. Mom cannot bear to see her foster daughters going down the way of death, so the meeting ends in a heavy mood. Recalling the heartwarming memories during the 3 years when they were together, the four of them actually cherish the short reunion. However, out of her loyalty to the Red Room, Mom still reports to Mastermind about Natasha's visit. Shortly after, a helicopter hovers over their residence. Recognizing the troops are from the Red Room, Natasha, Yelena, and Dad get ready for a fierce fight. However, before Dad releases any of his superpowers, he is stunned by the anesthetic dart that comes right through the window. While Mom surprise attacks Natasha and Yelena and hands them over to the Taskmaster. Dad wakes up to find himself tied up, and Mom is navigating the plane upwards. It turns out the Red Room is built in the air, a place too mysterious to find. As Yelena is the only survivor among those who have taken the antidote, Mastermind decides to dissect her brain for research. In fact, the antidotes are created by some widows, not the Mastermind. To remove any potential threat to his regime, Mastermind commands Mom to find out the mechanism of the antidote. He also instructs Mom to give a jab to Natasha, but she hesitates. Mastermind steps forward to touch her hair, and is surprised to realize she is not Mom, but Natasha, who masks herself to pretend as Mom. It turns out that Mom is not aware of the Red Room's specific location. So they have come up with such a plan. Mom willingly helps out, because she loves her daughters and hates the Mastermind's evil acts. At the same time, Mom also removes her mask before Dad. As the structural designer of the base, Mom easily saves Dad out from prison. Yelena wakes up just before the medical staff is about to tranquilize her. She takes out the hidden knife and fights her way out. Mom directs Yelena to steal antidotes from the freezers and apply them to the widows. Mom then brings Dad to the main control center, trying to bring the floating base down to the ground. Back to Mastermind's office, Natasha tries to kill him, but neither her gun nor knife works. Her weapon is repelled whenever they are placed close to Mastermind. Natasha is deeply shocked to discover that she has lost control over her own hands. It is due to the mind control particles filling the atmosphere. As soon as she breathes in the air, she is unable to assassinate Mastermind. Later, Mastermind shares with Natasha his kingdom blueprint through the control console. His agents control over all walks of life, be they government officials or ordinary civilians. The oil market and the stock market will collapse if he wishes it. He can easily wipe out 1/4 of the world's population through starvation. With just one word, he can deploy his agents to wage war to overthrow various governments. All the magic is done through the control console in his hand. Mastermind aspires to seize control of the Avengers through Natasha. Once the Avengers come under his power, there will be no more hurdles ahead of him. Natasha laughs at his ambition and bangs her head against the table. Seeing Mastermind puzzled, Natasha tells him she is already aware of the mind control substance floating in the air. Mom tips off to her the way to free from Mastermind's control is to cut her taste nerve. Right then, the alert Natasha grabs the control console from Mastermind and beats him up. Mom and Dad are proceeding to the control room, but the Taskmaster confronts them. Dad stays behind to deal with Taskmaster, while Mom enters the control room alone. Her intrusion causes the self-protective operation system to shut down. Mom has no choice, but leaves the control room and ventures to the engine room instead. There, she damages an engine, and forces the spaceship to land, which results in a huge explosion, and setting off the alarm bells. In response to the emergency, the mind-controlled Black Widows are all heading to the Mastermind's office, getting ready to kill the intruders. So when Yelena finally comes to the base with the antidotes, she cannot find any Widows around. Dad and Taskmaster are having a white-hot battle. Even though Dad is a powerful veteran, the Taskmaster gains an upper hand. At a critical moment, Mom shows up, and manages to lock the Taskmaster inside the prison. On the other hand, the Widows arrive at the Mastermind's office to attack Natasha. Natasha seems to be winning at first, but soon she is worn out, as the opponents outnumber her. Fortunately, Yelena's timely arrival ends Natasha's crisis. She ties the antidote to a bomb, and makes it blast in the air. As such, all the Widows are awakened to avenge Mastermind, but he is nowhere to be found. Natasha copies all the agent data from Mastermind's computer. While the whole spaceship is breaking apart, Natasha rushes out of the base with the thumb drive. But she is stopped by the Taskmaster. She soon identifies the Taskmaster as Mastermind's daughter. Years back, Natasha follows his daughter to the base to demolish it. Natasha thought that both Mastermind and his daughter have died of the explosion. By now it is clear that Mastermind was not present during the bombing. Mastermind saves his daughter, and transforms her into the Taskmaster, a robot soldier. Having pity for the daughter's misfortune, Natasha releases her. However, the daughter, losing all senses of herself, only wants to defeat Natasha. All of a sudden, the place is blown up, and the two of them land in different places. Mom decides to leave the scene by plane, but a coming robot soldier surprises her. After a fierce fight, Dad manages to throw the robot soldier off the plane with his shield. However, the plane loses its balance and plunges drastically. On the other side, Yelena is sharp enough to spot Mastermind before he boards a plane. In order to kill him, Yelena hops onto the helicopter and sets a bomb to blow it up. As the plane disintegrates, Yelena begins to fall from the sky. Luckily, Natasha sees what happens and saves Yelena with her parachute. Unexpectedly, Mastermind's daughter also survives the explosion and lands in the same place as the sisters. Natasha takes a chance to apply the antidote to her, causing the daughter to regain her consciousness from the mind control. Natasha apologizes to her for the death of her father. In the final scene, the Foster family all survive the disaster unscathed and are ready for a family reunion. Shortly after, however, seeing the enemy convoy is rushing into the battlefield afar, Natasha urges her family to leave to rescue more Black Widows, while she's determined to stay behind for the coming challenge. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Peace out.